In February, a podcast by the name of So Bad It's Good did an interview with Olivia Marie Plath. The host of the podcast name is Ryan Bailey, and the link to the full interview can be found in the bio below. I am so excited to see all these people here to join me in talking about TLC shows, reality TV, and Christian fundamentalism, or anything else that I find interesting. If you're unfamiliar with who Olivia Plath is, I highly recommend going through my Welcome to Plathville playlist. Olivia comes from the TLC show Welcome to Plathville, about a large family that grew up in Cairo, Georgia. Olivia was married to the oldest Plath son, Ethan, but in the last season, season 5, they announced their divorce. She is my favorite person on the show and seems to have grown into a lovely, brilliant woman despite all the hardships she faced. I love seeing her in interviews like this that are outside the TV show because it really emphasizes my love for her personality and strength. Alongside being on the show, Olivia is also a destination wedding photographer and has been living in LA since June of 2023. Let's see what she shared on the podcast. They start off by talking about how she feels about LA, and Olivia admits she has not seen all the crazy everyone warned her about. She goes to a bakery regularly and reads books at the park or a beach.
Moving here, all of a sudden I felt like my life was boring.
I feel this so much. Moving out of my parents' house and in with my husband was an extreme change. Going from constant fighting and fear to a quiet and safe environment is a wild experience. They transitioned to talking about how Olivia was raised to believe the state of California was evil as a whole. She even remembers, as a little girl, promising she'll never go there. But everything changed when she was 18 and shot a wedding in San Francisco. Ryan is overjoyed to hear Olivia loves California so much, as he also lives there. He talks about how interesting it is how the show started with showing the older Plath children experiencing all these different things for the first time, and how it now only seems to be Olivia that wants to move away from the religious upbringing.
Curiosity is the theme of my life. And if you're curious and you want to meet people, you want to see how other people live and what they think and what, drives them, it's really hard to go back to the bubble after that.
She goes on to say something she said a few times before. It can be easy to change your clothes, what you eat, and any of those outer things about yourself. But it is a completely different challenge to change who you are, what you believe, the biases you have, and so on.
I look at like Mariah, dress different, be different, but it's a lot harder to dig really deep inside. And especially if it requires you to critically look at your own family dysfunction, that's really hard. Most people won't.
Then Ryan asks if Olivia watches the show, and she said she no longer does. She watched the first 3 seasons and stopped because of how she was doing during season 4 and how she wasn't proud of how she handled some moments. That reminds me, we will be wrapping up rewatching the entire season and show next week, and you'll get to see some of Olivia's worst moments. But Ryan points out something that I love about Olivia. She is critical of herself. She doesn't just knock the Plaths for their behavior, but also feels regret for some of her less kind moments. It seems Olivia genuinely wants to improve and be a better person, and I just don't see that in any of the Plaths. I love what she then says here.
And I look back with some grace, knowing that I didn't have tools to handle it differently, but also providing myself accountability, going like, okay, but I can't say that my whole life. I have to acquire these tools.
Amen to that. Now it's time to dive deeper into her childhood and being raised in a fundamentalist household. She mentions how she realized she was dissatisfied with life at the age of 14 or 15, but didn't know exactly why. She didn't have strong relationships in her life to include her parents and friends. She also cut her hair shoulder length and started wearing eyeliner, which is a big no. This went on for 2 years.
16, 17, I like stopped doing all of that and I apologized to the whole church and my dad for like rebelling against him, whatever.
Like in front of everybody, you had to get up and apologize?
I wrote a letter to all the elders in the church and their daughters who I was a bad example for.
Ryan then asks about how Ethan courted her. Olivia shares that they met at a conference, and years later, Ethan wrote Olivia's dad a letter. This led to her dad talking to Kim to figure things out. It was agreed that Ethan and Olivia could talk for 1 hour on Skype every 3 months. The rule was set by the same woman who told Lydia to get to know the boy she liked more before talking to him more. This is also the same woman who is now dating, not courting, a man post getting divorced. The hypocrisy is intense. Olivia also mentions how she has been dating.
The hard part for me is getting past the first date because I grew up in purity culture, which basically told me that as a woman, like, I was solely responsible for keeping men from going to hell.
I understand this very well because although my lifestyle was never as strict as Olivia's, purity culture makes dating really confusing and challenging. It is amazing that even after years and years of fighting those thoughts and disagreeing with them, they still affect us women. The shame runs deep. She then mentions how she doesn't want to be a parent that parents from all of these insecurities like her parents did. And I just love that phrasing so much. I feel the same way, and I'm so excited to live in a generation of people that agree we can end the lineage of family trauma now.
I want to deal with these things now, whether I have kids, whether I don't. Like, I would rather deal with it now.
They move on to talking about the ridiculous comment Ethan made in season 5 about Olivia cooking 3 meals a day. Olivia brings up that more was said in the conversation, but TLC avoids politics, so it wasn't all included. But I also love what she says here.
I'm a petty bitch. One of the first questions I ask men with no context is like, so do you cook?
Is that petty, or is that protecting herself from men that are not worth her time? Ryan then talks about how when he first started watching the show, he was confused why this pure of a family would want a TV show. Why would they want to get involved in the secular realm? He follows that wondering by asking how Ethan and Olivia were approached with the idea and their thoughts on it. I do want to note that it seems Ryan is not super familiar with the fundamentalist realm, and that's perfectly okay. But the Plath family is very similar to the Duggars in the way that they want to perform. They want the world to see the amazing, God-loving lives they're living. Other notable figures are also the Rodriguez family and the Pearls. I also learned in this interview that Kim wrote a book titled Intuitive Motherhood: Trusting Your Body's Wisdom for Birth and Beyond in 2013. Unfortunately, the only copy I see is $250 on Amazon. So I will not be getting my hands on that.
The show started when I got married. She invited them to shoot my wedding without even asking me or talking to me because she thought I would say no.
Truly, the more I learn about Kim, the more evil I think she is. The audacity for her to claim Olivia was filled with evil spirits. Ultimately, though, the show required Ethan and Olivia to say yes in order to truly begin filming. This led Ethan and Olivia to make a list of requirements of things that must happen in order for them to say yes. And now we learn another evil thing about Kim. At this time, Ethan and Olivia were not allowed to see the Plath siblings, and Kim told them that if they agreed to do the show, they could see the siblings again. This woman is crazy. Ryan then describes Olivia in such a great way.
You're a reliable narrator. I can trust you. I can you're not, I know you have your faults, but I can actually trust you to tell a story from point A to point B.
He then asks if she'll be in season 6, and she says absolutely.
If you're going to idolize a lifestyle that promotes the dysfunction that we see, then you have to show the flip side. You have to show what happens when someone walks away from it.
I really do hope season 6 happens because I want to see Olivia living her best life away from this cocky but dysfunctional family. We also learn from this interview that Olivia really loves the crew of this show, which I love for her. She also mentions how wedding photography was one of the best things she did in the midst of the divorce because it allowed her to see couples that treat one another with respect.
And these are people that are best friends. And I didn't have any of that in my relationship. And it made me go, that's out there.
They also talk about their temporary split. Ethan agreed they can live in 3 different places over the next 3 years. If you're caught up with all of my Plathville videos, we already knew this. Ryan then asks if they ever tried marriage counseling.
When we were separated the first time, he agreed to go for a little bit. I think we got maybe 3 sessions in.
And then Ethan stopped showing up. So that's cool. The conversation continues, and Olivia mentions how Ethan has said that if his theoretical son ever came out as gay, he would never talk to him again. And Olivia is strongly opposed to that idea. Then Olivia shares that Ethan tried to get her back during the divorce process.
He changed his mind after I moved to Los Angeles and was like, actually, I want to get back together with you.
But Olivia was uninterested and didn't even have a relationship with Ethan at this point, or arguably ever. He even told Olivia his family had a celebration party when they found out about the divorce. One thing I did not expect or know at all was that Ethan is very close with Olivia's brother Nathan, who we saw in season 4. Ethan has been heavily leaning on Nathan throughout the divorce, and that drastically changed Olivia's relationship with her brother.
It's so messy that I just try not to think about it, so I still sleep at night.
In good news, Olivia has maintained a strong relationship with the extended family she met in Minnesota. I love that for her. Ryan then asks a really great question regarding Olivia being in season 6 and how, if he were a producer, he'd want the storylines to still connect in some way. So, what are her boundaries on which Plath she would be willing to possibly talk to? And Olivia shares that she would be willing to have a conversation, but
if this turns into a blame festival, I'm walking away. If this turns into a circus, I'm gonna walk away and let it burn.
I'm obsessed with the fact that she quoted Mariah's song. Amazing. But also, realistically, there is no crossover between Olivia and the immediate Plath family. I really want to compliment Ryan here because he asked such good questions and such a wide array of questions. Like, now, after all this heavy conversation, he wants to know what TV shows she's watching. And Olivia answers that media consumption is challenging for her and is oftentimes overstimulating.
If I'm just watching fun things, then I feel like I'm ignoring the real issues at hand. If I just pay attention to the real issues, then I feel like it's a pit of despair.
She does share that she finished The Bear and started watching Modern Family with her sister. Olivia moves on to talk about how Plathville isn't exactly producer driven, and as she explains it, it is cast members who push the narrative of each season. Then Ryan asks what music she listens to. She pulls up her 13-hour classic rock playlist.
Guns N' Roses, Van Halen, Def Leppard, Bon Jovi, Bryan Adams, Foreigner, Boston, Pink Floyd, Supertramp, Meatloaf.
Olivia goes on to mention how tough of a year 2023 was for her. Ethan and her split in March, her brother unexpectedly died in May, and she had to go home and see her family of origin that she is very distant from. But ultimately, everything has turned out good.
I honestly feel like for the first time in my life, I feel at home with myself.
Ryan then asks for details on her seeing her family after all these years. And she mentions how her parents have blocked her and any other siblings that chose a different lifestyle than how they were raised. She also hasn't been allowed to talk to her younger siblings, including the one who passed, for years at that point.
First, when I found out he died, like there was a lot of anger at first. But going back home for his funeral, I went with my sister Lydia. We stayed together like glue the whole time, and just seeing like how they all live their life, how they deal with everything, it was confirmation to me of like, I lost out on relationships with my siblings and relationships with my parents and everything because I've chosen different, but I could never live this lifestyle.
Not only do I absolutely love that for her, I really relate to her and feel so honored to have had her story to live alongside as I go through my stuff. Olivia is such a bright and beautiful person. I also love how when she talks about what she is now looking for in a man, she wants someone that knows it might not be a forever thing. As someone that grew up with a stay together for the kids household that eventually led to a divorce, I've always said this to my husband. Do I ever want to separate? Right now, not even a little bit. Do I want either of us to stay if things change and the relationship no longer gives us life despite trying? Ew, absolutely not. And finally, I'd like to end this video on this amazing comment from Olivia.
If I can challenge anyone to just look at their own life a little bit more critically and be more curious about themselves and about others, then I think that any of the not so fun part of reality TV will have been worth it.
Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.